Disruption always follows intention. I know that's a bold claim, and I'm going to show you guys exactly why I say that. But disruption always follows intention. A lot of people want the easy path. A lot of people want the get rich quick scheme. They want the $1 million lottery ticket for $2. They don't want to work for it. They want the perfect body by taking Ozempic. They want the dream their spouse or husband of their dreams without putting in the work. A lot of people want to get to the destination without the issues coming up, and we know that's not what the Bible shows us that happens. We have adversity that comes. We have trials, tribulations, and temptations that come and get in our way of getting what we want. The Bible shows us principles that if we follow them, we can have success in the areas that the Lord wills us to have. We can create things that will allow us to become greater in the way that the Lord wills us to be. Let's look at some verses in the Bible that explain and prove what I'm talking about before I go more in depth of what I mean. Let's look at Genesis 37:23, and we'll read two different versions. We'll read the ESV and we'll read the King James Version. The ESV says this: "So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore." To the next verse. "And they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it." Now let's go to King James Version. "And it came to pass when Joseph came unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph of his coat of many colors that was on him." Next verse. "And they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty, there was no water in it." Now this is Genesis 37:23-24. What am I saying here? What is the Bible saying here? Now I'm not going too much into the context of what it's saying here, but I am mentioning the fact that in this story, particular story with Joseph had a dream. He had a dream about stars and the moon, and how basically that his brothers would serve the younger. His brothers would serve Joseph. That was not a customary thing back then. It was customary for the eldest to be the one that was going to be in charge. The eldest would get the largest inheritance, 50% of the estate, and everybody else would have to share it. This is the customary thing in the context of the day. For them to hear that the youngest would be the greatest was foreign, and it was something that offended them. It hurt them. And Joseph was favored by his father. That's why he had a special coat of many colors, to show his significance. Now, why do I say disruption follows intention? There was intention by him getting the dreams and understanding what God was going to do through him. Disruption came when he was thrown into the pit and sold for slavery. Disruption follows intentions. There's patterns, guys. You got to follow it. Let's look at another verse. Another story. We'll look at that one last. Matthew 4:1. Matthew 4:1. Okay, we'll go ahead and type that in. Matthew 4:1. And we'll read two different versions, of course. So, English Standard Version. Matthew 4:1. "Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil." What does King James Bible say? Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. What is Matthew 4:11 saying here? Now, a little bit of context behind this. Just before this, Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. After he was baptized, a voice came from the heavens saying, "This is my beloved Son, of whom I love." Intention followed by disruption. Immediately after that, he's led into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil for 40 days. 40 days in the wilderness. Right after he got baptized. Disruption follows intention. Let's look at another verse, and this is the one I wanted to say for last. Genesis 1:2. Let's take a look at that. Genesis 1:2. Now you guys might be saying, well, these are just people. Jesus was in human form, but he was still God. Don't get that twisted. He was still God. But let's look at Genesis 1:2. Now this is about the creation. This is the creation. Let's look at what happened with God. Now I'm not saying that he could have done this without. He could have perfectly just made this without any disruption if he wanted to. But God shows us something. God doesn't just do what's most productive for him. He does what's best for his people too. And he wanted to show us a pattern. He could have just created us all in one fell swoop. He could have created things without logic, or he created these things for us because he loves us and he wants us to have something to grow off of. He created us in his image so we can be creators and creative as well. Invent things. That's why horses are still galloping while we have rockets, spaceships, cars, jets, planes, you name it. But horses and animals are still galloping. So there's a lot of people that try to get confused, like we come from animals or we come from a lower life form. That's not true. We're created differently. We do stuff in a creative way. All the other animals are still doing exactly what they were created to do. Don't get that twisted. We didn't come from a lower life form. Let's read Genesis 1:2 ESV version. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Now let's look at the King James Version. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. What do you think of when you think of darkness? Let's look up darkness synonyms. Let's look that up right now. It's the first time I'm looking it up. Blackness, absent of light, gloom, gloominess, dimness, dullness, murkiness, shadow, shade, sinfulness, wickedness, evil, corruption, immorality, the devil, hell. These are just some words for darkness that are come up as a simile. Now, I'm not saying that these are things that describe the Lord. That's not true at all. I'm showing you the pattern in the Bible. The pattern is, and God followed this, not because he has to, he can do whatever he wants, but he did this to show us something. There's more to creation just in the Bible than what is created. The Lord allows us to see these things, and if we are willing to study, if we're willing, he knocks, and if we knock, he'll answer, right? If we seek him, we'll find him. That's what the Bible says. If we're willing to look for it, we can find so much more context, depth. We can grasp so many more things than just the creation. In the 6 days of creation, or I guess 7 days, but 7th day he rested. So darkness, right? That's absence, confusion, anxiety, all those things. Disruption. God created with intention, and it was followed by disruption. The earth was formless and void. God could have created the earth completely formed, all in one swoop. He could have created everything in 1 second, 1 millisecond, but he chose to create it in 6 days. Why? Because he wanted to show us a pattern. Now the earth was formless and void. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Deep, darkness, formless, void. Disruption follows intentions 99.99% of the time. Now, of course, there's always outliers. There's always things that happen. But most of the time, the pattern follows the same. Disruption follows intention. When you think that you're going to win in the game of life without anything going wrong, you are completely deceived and confused. You are completely deceived and confused. If you think that when you start working out, you're going to feel all great and stuff, like, ooh, I'm so excited I started. No, you're going to have days that you're struggling. You won't be able to get out of bed because you're so sore. Your body's going to hurt. Disruption follows intention. You have intention to get healthier. You have intention to change your life for the better, and you're hurting. Why is that? Why does that make sense? Why is that fair? I wanted to do something for my life. I wanted to be better, but yet you're hurting me. You caused me. He didn't cause anything. This is just the principles that he created. And if we don't have disruption, we won't be able to stay in the intention that he created us to have. I'm going to say it a different way. I'm going to say it a different way. All creation begins with intention. Disruption follows intention. When we intend to do something good, difficulty follows. Don't be so wrapped up with the difficulty. The Lord allows these things to come, the difficulty to come, because it builds us up. He wants us to be vessels that are capable of handling the intention that comes after the difficulty, and the difficulty that comes after the intention. He wants us to be stronger vessels. He wants us to have the things that He wills for us to have, but we also need to be stronger vessels. That's why the Lord doesn't take us out of adversity at times. He walks with us. With Abshak, Meshach, and Abednego, if I said their names wrong, I'm sorry. But with that story of them being in the fire, in the fiery furnace, they cranked the heat up on that furnace too. They cranked that thing up. But what happened? They got thrown in, and they saw 4 people in the fire. There was 3 people put in, they saw 4. God was with them through the challenge. He didn't save them from it. He was with them through it. They didn't die in that sense, right? They didn't die from the fire, but God walked with them. They still had to go through the challenge of the fire itself, though. But they weren't burnt. Disruption follows intention. Don't be confused and don't live a life trying to run from disruption. Know and trust in God that He has a plan for your life. As long as you're following His will, He will help you through it. Follow His will. That's the best plan for your life. Disruption follows intention. And you can be great if you follow the principles of the Bible and submit yourself to the Lord.